To the first section of Chapter 3 in Pre-Calculus. Okay, we're going to be talking about factoring binomials and trinomials. You've been doing this for a long time. Algebra 1 for sure. Okay, first of all, we're going to start off with binomials. You can tell they're binomials by two of them. Okay, two terms. And when we have two terms, there's only a couple things we can do. And the first one we're going to be looking at is when we pull out what is common, the common factor. In this first case, we got 12x plus 15. Now 12x plus 15, what you will notice is that, hey, I can take a 3 out of both of those. I can divide 12 and 15 both by 3. Now when I look at my terms, my variables, I have an x in this one. I got nothing here, so I can't pull any terms out in this case, any variables. So what I do is I pull a 3 out, then I divide the 12 by 3 and I put a 4. The x comes along for the ride down here. The plus sign comes along for the ride. And then we take 15 divided by my 3 and I get 5. And I leave that inside parentheses and that is factored down as best I can do. Next example, you'll notice with 21 and 9, again, 3 would be our common term. There are no variables to pull out because you just have the x there, so we pull the 3 out. 21 divided by 3 is 7. X and the minus sign come along for the ride. And then 9 divided by 3 is 3. The next one, 16 and 20. By the way, when you got bigger numbers, the largest factor that you can pull out will be the difference between the two. Okay? Doesn't always work that way, but it's a good indication, and it can't be any bigger than that. So in this case, 16 and 20 have a difference of 4. Yes, 4 go into both of them. Now also you'll notice a difference here. We have an m squared and we have an m. So we can pull an m out. So we pull out a 4m, then we divide both by 4m. When we divide this by 4m, we get 4, and we take one m away from the m squared. We're left with 4m. Minus sign comes along for the ride. 20 divided by 4 is 5, and we already took the m out, so we just end up with 4m minus 5. The next term, big dog here, okay? Well, we look at our numbers. Again, 5 will be the number that we can pull out, and then you'll notice we have an x squared in both of them. We have a y in both of them, so that will be our common factor that we will pull out, our 5x squared y. So then we look at it, we say, okay, 10 divided by 5 is 2. We took, I did a typo here. It's not supposed to be an x there, it's supposed to be a y. Okay, and then the z. Okay, we took out both x's, so we can't have an x there, but we do have one y left. On this one, 5x squared y divided by 5x squared y, well, anytime you have a number divided by itself, it's just 1. The plus sign came along for the ride. So my mistake on that, that should be a y. Okay, now we're going to factor trinomials. Again, you've been doing this for a while. The way that I deal with it is I take the factors of 16, which are 1 and 16, 2 and 8, or 4 and 4. And then, since it says plus here, they're going to add together to equal 10. Well, our two factors are the 8 and the 2. We always break down trinomials into two binomials by putting down, if this is an a squared, we just put an a and an a. And then when it's a plus sign here, they're both pluses, as long as this is a plus. So plus plus will always end up plus plus. Now this one you'll notice is a minus plus. Well, it's still going to be both the same sign, and you're still going to add the factors together to equal 22. Well, with 40, it's 20 times 2 adds up to 22. So we put our d's down there. We take our two factors, our 20 and our 2. They're added together. Well, this is a minus sign, so they're both minus signs. Now, it changes when you have a minus sign here. Now we have to have a difference of whatever the term is in front of the g. So we're going to put our g's down here. And then we take the factors of 20 that have a difference of 1. That would be our 5 and our 4. The bigger one, I always put the bigger one first, because then I can just drop this sign down right there. The bigger one has to have the plus sign. The smaller one has to have the opposite sign. You have to have one sign of each whenever you have a minus sign here. Now this minus sign, we're going to put our j's down, and then we're going to have factors of 40 that have a difference of 3, though that is 8 and 5. And notice, like I said, I put the bigger one here, so I can just drop this sign down here. The other one gets the opposite sign. Okay, Now we got difference of squares. Remember in the beginning I told you with binomials there are only certain things you can do. There are actually 4 things you can do. You can do what we did above. You can do difference of squares. You can do difference of cubes or sum of cubes. Now you don't see the difference and sum of cubes very often. Basically there's 2 things you can do, and we're going to do one of them here. Difference of squares. What we do has to have a minus sign, difference, and these have to both be perfect squares. So we have our x squared, obviously that's a perfect square, so you drop down x and x. 49, square root of 49 is 7, so we put a 7 and 7, and we put a plus sign and a minus sign. It does not matter the order. I was told by one student that if you put a negative sign first, you're a negative person. Just a thought. Okay, x squared plus 25. You got to watch out for these. Okay, difference of squares. Remember, difference of squares means have to have a minus sign. If you have a plus sign, you can't do anything with this, so we just write it as x squared plus 25. My bad on the 2 sitting down there. Now, here's a little more elaborate. We have an x squared, so we know that works as a perfect square. We have a 9, which is 3 times 3, and we have 64, which is 8 times 8. So we would put down a 3x. Okay, that's a square root of 9x squared. We would put down an 8, because that's square root of 64, and then we just put a plus and minus sign. Last example of this type, 25x squared, that's a 5x, so we put 5x on both those. 144 is 12 for both, and put 1 sign of each. Last thing we're going to be doing is solving when we have a perfect square here. I'm sorry, we don't have a perfect square here, but we got an x squared here. So when you have this, you take the square root of both sides. Now, we take square root of 20, but a big thing is you got to put a plus minus sign in front of the square root of 20. We can talk about factoring these things down later. Today, we're not worrying about that with this assignment. Okay, when we have a problem like this, we move the 46 over the other side by adding to both sides, so you get your x squared plus 40 equals 46. And then take square root of both. Don't forget to put the plus minus in front. Okay, when you have something like this, the easiest thing to do is divide both by 2 right off the bat to get down to your x squared. 24 divided by 2 is 12. So then we would take our 12 the other side. We get x squared equals 12. Man, my 3rd typo on this page. And I got my 4th right there. Good job, Brad. Okay, you get an x squared plus 12. Or x squared equals 12, and then take square root of both, you get plus or minus square root 12. Last one here, again, I would take and divide by 5. You can do that early, or you can do it once you move the 45 to the other side, doesn't matter. I get an x squared minus 9, I move the 9 over, I get x squared equals 9. Square root of both is plus or minus square root of 9. Hey, I got a perfect square, so I just put plus or minus 3. Talk to you later.